Hi, I'm Heather Darch, and this is a presentation by the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network. In this series called Raising Spirits, we are looking for the cemeteries, crossroads, and vanishing places of rural Quebec. Small hamlets in the early settlement years of the Châteauguay Valley could fade away as quickly as they had begun. Even though men and women worked hard to establish their homes and farms, small workshops, businesses, and mills along the region's water routes, sometimes their efforts were not enough. Economic pressures, seigneurial rents, and land opportunities elsewhere meant that their hamlets failed to flourish. In many of these cases, only the foundations of homes and barns and heritage cemeteries remain. But what if that kind of tangible evidence is all but gone? How do we remember? This is Babyville. In the late 18th century, a large section of land north of Hemmingford Township was designated as a tract of land under consideration for endowing a university. In 1809, this territory, which covered over 43,000 acres, became the township of Sherrington, and within this new township, around 7,300 acres were granted to François Baby, a wealthy fur-trading merchant and dignitary in the British colonial administration. There is no indication that François Baby ever visited or lived on his vast property. He died in 1820, just as the first Irish settlers arrived in his seigneurie and established a community called Babyville.
The only way I knew Baby was through some old papers that his name was Baby. I don't know how much land that man had between the Richelieu River and the Châteauguay River. That's quite a piece, eh? That's a lot of land. My name is Helen Seller, married to Kenneth Bachelder from Rougemont. I grew up in Sherrington, Quebec. My father's name was Lester Seller, and my mother's name was Margaret Greer. My father was born there in Sherrington, and I think his father maybe was born in Sherrington. My father was a farmer, and his father before him was a farmer. Worked the land, raised potatoes, cattle, milked cows, had chickens. In the beginning they had geese, I think, because geese was their Christmas income. We lived 3 miles out of the village. 3 miles out of Sherrington Village and 5 miles from Hemmingford Village. We were right in the country. We stayed on 219. My son, Brian's on the farm where I was born and brought up. He's on it. It's always been the same. It's only changed name now. It's Bachelder now instead of Seller. But it was Seller from the beginning, from 1810 maybe. It was Seller. Because when they went there, it was all woods. There was nothing, only woods. Must have been terrible. I don't know how they made out and built a house, log house. My uncle, who was born in 1875, Uncle Eddie, he used to tell us about the log house. He could remember it. Because the dad said his father, I think it was, used to tell about when the Patriots were at war, and that was way down near Lacole. They could smell poudre, they called it, not powder, poudre. They could smell it in the air. His grandmother, I think, took the children and they went onto the back road, which would be around Saint Francois, to someone that they knew. They had to go through the woods, about a mile. And they took the old dog with them. They were afraid of bears or something, wild things. Because he stayed at the log house probably, and she took the children and went onto the other road because they could smell this powder and they were afraid of the soldiers getting closer to them. Dad used to tell us that.
Babyville extended between the first and fourth concessions and was centered by a public road. This road was reconstructed and straightened over time, but is essentially Route 219 today. The road was cut from La Tortue, now Saint-Edouard, to the Hemmingford line in 1819. It was exceedingly rough, and it took several years before wheeled carts could use it. The maps of Babyville indicate the names of the predominantly Irish families who were settled on that section of the public road that ran through the hamlet. Today, only a few of the street names in Sherrington reflect the names of the early Babyville landowners.
Well, they were Irish, mostly O'Mara. I think O'Mara's had the butter factory in Sherrington. I knew Edna Murray. They lived right in the village of Sherrington. Yaxley was her married name. He was Irish too, came from Montreal. Spoke English. No, I never heard anyone speak Irish, no. Actually, my mother's people were Irish. Greer was Irish. I didn't know my grandfather, but my grandmother on my mother's side was Scottish. But I didn't hear much about my mother's people. I only heard about my father's people. English, Yorkshire, as far as I know, Yorkshire, England. And Dad said when they came, they never wrote back. They never communicated. They just left. Sherrington was started by Irishmen, I'll say, not Englishmen. Because my Greer family, they were on Rue Saint-François, and that's at the back. Not 219, west of 219. But you know, there was a tax that they had to pay, eh? I think the tax that had to be paid on the Sherrington side, not Hemmingford, Sherrington. Rue Saint-Pierre is a division between Sherrington and Hemmingford. Hemmingford was crown land and Sherrington was seigneurial. So that's why a lot of the English-speaking people, our neighbors in front of Sellers, moved away. And French people moved in. There weren't many Irish. When Dad grew up, there were French. They moved in to Sherrington. But we all had to pay that tax to the seigneur. It was a lot of money. Every year they had to pay that. So that's why a lot of them moved away. They couldn't afford it. And if you couldn't afford it, I think you had to pay with maybe a cow or some chickens or a pig or horse, who knows what. Yeah, to pay that tax. That's when my grandfather died in 1914. My grandmother, who was little, I'll say richer than my grandfather was, she paid them all off. She paid the seigneur off. No more paying the seigneur.
One of the first structures to be established in the Baby Seigneurie was a mill. Baby's Mill was situated on the Lacadie River, formerly known as the Little Montreal River, roughly 3 kilometers southeast of Sherrington Village, which is known today as St. Patrice de Sherrington. Baby's Mill was likely a sawmill and was powered by a steam engine to drive its mechanisms. A secondary road, now Rue Fortin, linked the mill to the main or public road to the west. The section of the same secondary road leading east was used only as a winter road and no longer exists. At the beginning of the 20th century, there was no trace of Baby's Mill. the course of the Lacadie River was modified sometime in the mid-19th century to accommodate drainage canals that were used to transform wetlands into arable farmland. In 1840, some 60 Irish-speaking tenants of Babyville and 40 French-speaking families in Sherrington wrote a request to the Bishop of Montreal for the right to build a Catholic church on land that François Baby had bequeathed for that purpose. Their petition led to the founding of the parish of St. Patrice de Sherrington in 1848. A wooden chapel was first built around 1850, near the current site of St. Patrick's Church, which was completed in 1857. In the parish cemetery, the stones of Babyville families can still be found.
The church, well, I didn't go in the church very much. That church was a Catholic church. I went for a few funerals. It was a nice little church. It's an awful nice little church. Yeah. And the Anglican one was a little bit north. And it, of course, it's been gone for, well, I know the person that knows, she remembers it. And it's gone.
Regular services for Irish Protestant families in Babyville began at St. James Anglican Church in 1843. St. James was located just north of the Catholic Church in Sherrington Village. Unfortunately, the number of English-speaking Anglican families diminished throughout the 1850s. The last service in St. James was held in 1872, as not one Protestant family remained in the area. The church fell into ruins and was taken down in the early 20th century.
And the cemetery is gone. They dug the cemetery out and put a swimming pool in its place. Yeah. And they didn't know it. They didn't know it till the man was Mr. Smith, who has an excavator. He was in digging, and he said to my father, I guess he said it to Dad, you know, he said, I came across human bones, he said. It scared me. And Dad says, yeah, well, that's a cemetery. It's a Protestant cemetery there. Didn't know that. He didn't know it. But they took the stones and they propped them up beside the Catholic Church. And then the priest got tired of seeing them there, so he had someone come in and dug a hole, and they buried the stones in there. And a lot of the stones were taken also to people's homes and put in their basements for steps and such things. So there's no finding any of those stones at all. And my great-grandfather, I guess it would be, John Seller, and his wife, Hannah Furbank, are both buried under that Bouillet garage. That's where their remains are, under the garage. Yeah.
The final markers, representing some of the early Protestant families of Babyville, are simply gone.
My father used to talk about Bell. Mr. Bell lived just down the road a little from us. Well, the Bells were there. I don't know how long they lived there. And they moved out, well, because of that tax. They moved out. And they went to Ormstown, I believe. And then from Ormstown, they scattered. They were gone all over the place. But the Sellers stayed. Sellers stayed.
The decline and exodus out of Babyville began in the 1830s when the Hemmingford Crown Reserves opened for settlement. The Southwest Townships allowed settlers to own land outright, and rather than continuing to pay seigneurial rents, Babyville residents took the opportunity to move and purchase their own farmland. Lease requirements were not lifted until the Seigneurial Rent Abolition Act of 1935. By this time, there was little left of Babyville.
When I was growing up, there was only horse and buggy. My father had a car, and there was one man, or maybe two, in Barrington, a mile away, a mile and a half away, who had a car. They all had this horse and buggy. It got a little wider than it used to be, because when we were growing up, it wasn't a very wide road. But it's the same. It's pretty well the same. My father did all the shopping. Once in 6 months or something, maybe, we'd go to Hemmingford. There were a couple of stores in Hemmingford, but the same kind of stores in Sherrington. But they spoke English. In Sherrington, they spoke French. But the girl herself, she could talk English. In Sherrington, Sikat store. There was a barber shop. Little barber shop, never was in it because we weren't allowed in it. My sister and I weren't allowed as girls. There's only boys that were allowed in the barber shop. But he also sold cones of ice cream, 5 cents. Nice little cone of ice cream. And Dad would get us a cone of ice cream and bring it out to the car. The 2 boys would be in there with Dad getting their hair cut. And then there was Guérin's store next to them. It was a grocery store too, I think, but they sold a certain kind of cheese that Dad liked. That rubbery cheese, if you know what that is. And then after that, what was there? There was Fortin's garage, and then there was a church, and then there was a school, and an hotel. Then Sikat store, the bakery across the road, the post office, and the bakery, of course, no longer there. It's demolished. I was in there when he had his big table full of bread. Not made yet, just in the dough on the table. And he was working in his undershirt. It was so warm in there. Yeah. I went to school in Barrington, which was a mile away, and it was a French school. Only could talk French. The closest English school in Sherrington was way down near St. John's. And my father couldn't get one because there were no other English families. There weren't enough children. I think Dad said you had to have 10 children to form a school, and we were only 4. My father himself had gone to the French school in Sherrington, but they always had an Irish teacher, so she spoke English. And Dad had an English book and an English reader. But in my day, it was there was no English reader or English geography. It was all in French in my day, in 30-something. When I went to school, I was 7 when I started. I liked the French school. I liked it. We had, my first teacher was, I called her very cross. She was young, but she was a good teacher. And I learned an awful lot in grade 1, but completely in French, completely. Nothing in English. And so my mother really couldn't help me. She was not bilingual. My father was bilingual, but spoke joual, not French today. Yeah, but he got along all right with the French people, and we did too. We got along, we had good friends. Well, the first one was white school, W-H-Y-T-E, white, and I had 4 years of French. Mademoiselle Morin, Mademoiselle Benoit, Mademoiselle Patnaud. Those were my teachers I had, 4 years in French. Then I went to the English school, and I had Miss Hawkins, Gilmore, and my favorite one, West, Mary West, yeah, in Barrington. Then I went to Hemmingford, and I had a couple of teachers up there, yeah. Well, I went to McDonald College, became a teacher, elementary teacher, 10 years like an all. I taught over in Shields School for 1 year before I went to MacDonald College. When the weather was good, I went on my bicycle from home. And then in the winter, I stayed at my aunt's, my aunt and uncle's, Kyle's. And when I went to teach in Granby, the first one I saw, I looked around the room, didn't know anyone. Ah, there's my grade 9, 10, and 11 teacher here, Miss Howes. Miss Howes was teaching in Granby. I was glad to see her. She taught me Latin 1 year, and then after that I dropped it. It was too much. It was hard, it was difficult. It was worse than French. French I had no problems with, but Latin, yeah. I don't think we had electricity in the house till, say, 1940. That's a long time. I never thought anything of it. Coal oil lamps. And that went from Rue Saint-Paul to Rue Saint-Pierre. 1 mile stretch in between, no electricity, no telephone. The others towards Hemmingford had it, and the ones towards Sherrington had it. And that strip of a mile did not have it. And my father tried, he went to council meetings, he went to different things to get electricity. Finally, it came. And we were growing up. We were growing up when that electricity came, because my sister helped pull the wires through the wall, because my mother wanted a 3-way switch to go upstairs. That was quite the thing to do, that one, yeah. And that time too, they put the poles in. The poles had to go through the orchard, so they had to be extra long, because Dad sprayed the apple trees. He didn't want to spray the wires. And the little fellow across the road, Demier Prévost, dug the hole for the pole, and he hit something. And he said, "That's not a stone," he said. "What is that?" Way down, about 6 feet down. It was a coin. George the, second, third, one of those kings. So the coin had got lost, got buried anyway. It was down about 6 feet down in the ground. That when he dug the hole, he came across it. He hit it with the crowbar. We saved that coin. It had a mark in it from from where the crowbar went through it. Yeah, I think George the Third or something. One of those early kings when they left England, I suppose, you know. My niece, Laurie Seller, has visited Yorkshire in northern England. She and her mother took a trip, and they visited England and Ireland and Scotland. I asked her, I said, "What was it like, Laurie?" And she said, "Little old stone houses." And they left that and came to live in stones again. Because where we are, it's stones. It's full of stone walls. My brother Eric did an awful lot of cleaning. Instead of a wire fence, it was a stone fence. They're all gone, and made open fields. Because they took me down there a couple of weeks ago for a ride. I hadn't been down in the field for a long time. It's different, changed altogether, different from when I was a little one. Yeah. Handwork, back-breaking jobs. They must have been awful tired at night. They worked hard for it, because hours there at home from 1800 to now, it's what, 200 years? It's the same land, the same property, the same ones. Changed name now because it's Bachelder instead of Seller, but same descendants. All the others have changed 3 or 4 times. Same descendants. Yeah.